what I would challenge many people to do is, if you're on the fence, just do a meat-based diet for 90 days. Go ahead and see what happens. Just convince yourself. Maybe you can convince yourself that I'm full of it.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, it's good to see you again. If we haven't met before, then hi, I'm GojiMan. I'm a qualified nutritionist and soon to be PhD student. I do vegan health and nutrition videos as often as I can, which answer your health questions under the hashtag AskGojiMan. So if you have a question for me, then hashtag AskGojiMan in the comments below, or alternatively send your video questions through to contact@gojimannutrition.com. As always, just a quick reminder that I'm now offering the SIBO, organic acid, stool tests and consults via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests, as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video.
Okay, are vegetables poisonous? Are plants bad for us? Is meat, a superfood? Or is meat bad? That's the question. And so what we are told is that, a plant-based diet is going to be yielding a better outcome. That is based on population-based studies, which we've seen. It's interesting. We have a sort of a field of nutrition that was founded by Seventh-day Adventists back in 1917, starting with Lenny Cooper, who was one of the founding members of the American Dietetics Association. There's been a plant-based bias from the beginning.
Okay, let's just say that I believe you that there is some mass conspiracy by the Seventh-day Adventists in the US to infiltrate the US Dietetics Association with some agenda to get everyone onto plants. I don't live in the US. So is the British Dietetics Association in the UK corrupt? Is the World Health Organization corrupt? Is the International Confederation of Dietetic Associations in France corrupt? Because what you are asserting is that if any health organization in the world suggests that plants are beneficial or optimal for human health, well then these are somehow being driven by some high-level global agenda. Where did you read all of this, Shawn? Maybe you found it on your bookshelf next to those 9/11 conspiracies, the flat earthers, or perhaps those Illuminati bestsellers.
Remember, the American diet is 70% plants and about 30% animal products, of which only about 5% of that is actual red meat. So we eat very little red meat in this country, despite eating a relatively high amount relative to the rest of the world. But we still get the vast majority of our calories coming from plant foods. Now, granted, many of those foods are grains. Many of those foods are sugars, seed oils. We a significant percentage of our caloric intake comes from vegetable oils, but those are still plant-based products.
So you literally just said it yourself. People are eating plant-based products and not plant-based whole foods, so processed refined grains and sugars. And I don't think that anyone in the world would disagree with you that processed refined carbs are bad for human health. What you are doing is the equivalent of me saying that processed refined meats loaded with nitrates are the same as conventional meat. Clearly, one is better for your health than the other. And where the hell are you getting your statistics from that Americans don't consume much red meat? So the National Chicken Council on its website, as well as many other agricultural councils across America, cite consumption of meat per capita. Total red meat per person was around £133 in 1960 and is around £110 today. So that's just a £20 drop per person. So all of that conspiracy and Seventh-day Adventist infiltrations for a measly £20 drop in red meat consumptions in over 60 years. Equally, total red meat and poultry combined was £167 in 1960 compared to approximately £220 today. So that's an increase in £53 per person, and yet according to you, Americans are consuming less red meat. Now these figures are cited on the National Chicken Council website, as well as many other animal agricultural websites across the US. So are you now going to suggest that maybe the National Chicken Council is being infiltrated by the Seventh-day Adventists or Illuminati?
Now, we could argue that some are worse than others, and some people will say that fruits and vegetables and grains and beans and legumes might be less damaging to us. But when we look at and I'll link this in the description. There's a nice study that Bruce Ames did back in 1990 looking at toxicology of plant pesticides. And so the concern was that people were really worried about pesticides being sprayed on crops as a potential health problem. So we see that today with glyphosate. People are worried about Roundup on their food and getting it into the food chain. And so that's a valid concern. And so his study back in 1990 looked at the volume of pesticides that people are consuming. And in that study, he figured out that despite spraying pesticides on plants, we still get 99.9% of our ingested pesticides are actually coming from the plants themselves.
Again, you are talking about things being added to fruits and vegetables by man. There are many scientists that would agree with you, and I would even agree with you, that people should not be consuming pesticides on their fruits and vegetables. But again, if you take the pesticides out of the equation, where is the evidence that fruits and vegetables are toxic? I'm really looking forward to what you have to say. And again, you are being deliberately disingenuous by not telling the whole story. What about PCBs and organochlorine pesticides and other fungicides in meat products? For many people in the US, their consumption of these animal products could be their biggest source of exposure to such pesticides, as many of these animals are fed pesticide-laden crops. But no mention of these, is there, Shawn? But anyway, let's move on, because I am literally bursting at the seams for the big reveal as to why fruits and vegetables are so toxic for humans.
Plants are making pesticides to kill insects, to kill fungi, to dissuade mammals and other things from eating them. So these plants make their own pesticides. And people say, well, that's just a natural pesticide. That's no big deal. Just because a compound is natural does not mean it's innocuous. In other words, it doesn't mean it doesn't harm you. Cyanide is a naturally occurring plant pesticide. It's found in many plants. You can find it in apple seeds and almonds and other compounds. And we know that cyanide is a poison. And in fact, when they looked at, during that study back in 1990, when they looked at that study, they found that of the 52 compounds they tested, and in 52 is only a tiny fraction, there are literally thousands of compounds found in all these plants that we normally consume. They found that of those 52 compounds, 27 of them were shown to be carcinogenic in animals. That is to say, rat studies and mice studies. And granted, some of those were in high dosage, but that is the same sort of stuff we hear about meat. Meat compounds, heterocyclic amines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are concerning because in high-dose rat studies, they show a potential carcinogenic potential. But we discount that in plants for some reason. I'm not sure why the reason is. Why I kind of know why, because it's not profitable for major cereal manufacturers and other processed food companies, which heavily rely on plant agriculture, particularly grain agriculture, to say and to recognize that maybe lectins or goitrogens or gliadins, glutens and stuff like that are problematic.
So nobody says that some of these compounds such as gluten, gliadin and even soy are not a problem. After all, it is widely acknowledged that celiac disease, gluten intolerance and other sensitivities exist. But again, you are deliberately being disingenuous by saying that because some people have issues, therefore it must mean that all fruits and vegetables are bad. And again, what the hell are you going on about, waffling about rat studies? Chocolate is toxic to dogs and could kill them because they can't metabolize theobromine. Humans and many other animal species have no problems in metabolizing theobromine. By the very nature of your argument, most of the animal kingdom would be walking around half dead with all of those anti-nutrients and natural pesticides that they are consuming from fruits and vegetables. Some of the longest living animals on the planet, such as the Galapagos giant tortoise, the African elephant and the bowhead whale, all consume copious amounts of plant matter with natural pesticides with ill effect. Now, I can almost hear your response and you will say, oh well, these animals have the mechanisms to be able to degrade things like oxalates that humans don't. No, they have the same mechanisms in their gut as we do, namely their gut bacteria and specific gut bacterial species. You also talk about goitrogens, etc. Goiters appear exceedingly rarely in tortoises and other animals in the animal kingdom, despite eating very high amounts of goitrogens. So maybe you could possibly entertain the notion that thyroid issues, celiac disease, gluten sensitivities, and even oxalate problems could be potentially due to human-caused interventions. So maybe it could be high rates of antibiotic use. Maybe it could be high rates of antibiotic use in animal agriculture. Maybe it could indeed be, as you say, and be pesticide use. Maybe it could be the way that these companies such as Monsanto are genetically modifying things. Or maybe it could be all of the above and many different factors. But for you to sit there and say that you know it's the fruits and vegetables that are specifically causing some issues in humans just highlights how much of a disconnect that you have.
And again, when we generally look at plant toxicology on foods, we test them for acute illnesses. You know, there might be some studies looking at potential DNA damage, which might predispose people for cancer, but we don't know if this particular compound predisposes someone to diabetes, to hypertension, to joint pain, to depression, to autoimmune disease. Those things have never been tested, so we just don't know. And so while I would say that it is remarkable to see that there are literally thousands upon thousands of people now that have found that by removing plants from their diet, their chronic diseases go away. Therefore, it is reasonable to posit that some of these plant compounds are actually contributing to these diseases. I don't think that is a wild speculation to make. I think it's to dismiss that outright now that we have literally tens of thousands. I mean, I just did a survey and got 11,000 responses, and something like 95% of the people saw improved health by going on a mostly or fully carnivorous diet, which I think is very, very curious at the very least.
I agree with what you are saying. There are people, thousands as you say, that really struggle with fruits and vegetables, but there are not thousands of people on the planet, there are billions. So if what you are saying is true and fruits and vegetables are so toxic, then surely we would have millions or hundreds of millions of people coming to social media and not a few thousand ex-piss drinking vegans that you love to cite.
And so it's not to say that we should fear all plants and all plants are evil and bad, but we should recognize that they are potentially harmful and they are something that we should objectively assess individually. Again, population-based studies are not a good idea for telling you personally what to eat. And so,
at last, something we agree on. So if that's the case and you agree that we need to pay due diligence and look at the reasons why a small percentage of people are reacting negatively to fruits and vegetables, then why base your whole channel on being anti-fruits and vegetables when, as you say, you don't know what is causing these issues?
So what I would challenge many people to do is, if you're on the fence, just do a meat-based diet for 90 days. Go ahead and see what happens. Just convince yourself. Maybe you can convince yourself that I'm full of it.
Something else we agree on there.
And that's fine. I mean, I don't think anybody should be listening really to anyone else. I mean, it's just information that's out there, but you never know unless you test it. And so I think that is, what I want to get across today in this video. A day literally does not go by where I do not have some ex-vegan or plant-based person or vegetarian that tells me that, one, eating in a plant-based way ruined their health, and going to a fully meat-based way or a mostly meat-based way has dramatically improved their health. I mean, that information alone should be compelling to many, and to many people it is. But I mean, it's as if the greater scientific community chooses to put their head in the sand and ignore that and say.
So the scientific community doesn't disregard these types of issues. The scientific community establish oxalate problems, histamine problems, gluten problems, and all of these other problems that you allude to in this video. What the scientific community doesn't do is go, oh look, there are a few nutjob piss-drinking ex-vegans on the internet, and then extrapolate from that fruits and vegetables are bad for everyone. So to be fair, I'm not angry at you, Shawn, I'm just really disappointed. I thought you were meant to be a smart guy. I thought I would watch this video and I might learn something new that I have not heard before. But all I heard was conspiracy theories and you trying to suggest that processed refined carbohydrates are the same as whole foods. Blah, 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 blah. And hilariously, you keep referring to a handful of ex-vegans, Bobby's Perspective and the like, in that they are healed on a carnivore diet. Dude, these people can't even eat a celery stick without falling apart. So how healed are they truly? They are doing nothing more than controlling symptoms by dietary modifications. I'm bored of Shawn's video now, so that's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.